Hello, this is old Mr. Kent of MrKent.com, and this video is to do a little testing of the range between the smart controller and the DJI Mini 2, because as you'll notice, I'm holding it up enough so you can see the antennas. They point straight down and they radiate out 90 degrees from that, and just ignore my shaky thumb. And that's totally different than the antenna that came with the controller. And both of them are using OcuSync. I think I'm not up on all the information, but I think the DJI Mini 2 has the OcuSync 2 in it, but doesn't matter. They seem to hook up together. So what I wanted to do was just go see how much range we could get, and put it on the screen recorder so you could see. And the funny thing is you'll notice there's clouds. About a half an hour prior to this, there was a beautiful sunrise, and I started up and I flew the exact same route. Only thing is, I forgot to start the screen recorder, and it didn't even dawn on me until I came back and landed. But fortunately, I had 2 batteries, and so this is the second flight, and of course, the clouds came up, and so now it's not as beautiful as it was, but that's okay. I'm going to do my testing anyhow. And so that was a problem, but we finally got that fixed. And then they are harvesting this field again. And of course, I have put other videos up. When they harvest the field, it generates all kinds of dust. So they do it at night for 2 reasons, because right now it gets up to over 110 degrees. And I think the other day it was 115. And so who wants to work out in the sun during those hours? So they do it in the middle of the night. But also another reason they do it in the middle of the night is because everybody's in the house, and all the dust that they generate isn't going to be inhaled by everybody that lives in the area, because all that dust seems to drift over to our house, and I'll show you near the end of the video what it does to our black VW car. So anyway, I missed. So this is my second flight, and by the way, I have taken off my ND filters from my DJI Mini 2 because I always have to start out early in the morning, and there's not a whole lot of sunlight, because if I wait until the middle of the day, which my previous video was about that, it was 105 degrees in the middle of the day. And so I had to make a very short flight, less than 3 minutes. So you can check that video out. But anyway, so that's why my videos this time of year, I just can't do everything I want to do. And by the way, if you look up in the right-hand corner of the screen, it's beginning to show signs of a poor connection. When that turns red like that, well, you can tell that it's getting ready to. It doesn't have a strong signal like it did have. So anyway, there's the field down below, and then I'm just going out as far as I can. And really, I'm impressed with how far I can go, and I could even take it further, but I don't need to. Actually, I'm happy with what I can get out of it. But out this direction, there's not a whole lot to look at anyway after you get to the end of the field, unless I want to ride my e-bike out there. And I've ridden my e-bike out that direction, and I've made videos out there. So here we go again. You can see that it's still working, but it's beginning to show signs that it could be losing connection. So anyway, got to tell you a story before it gets too late here. My son, who we live with now, we live on his property. When he was 9 or 10 years old, we lived in Washington State, and we went to visit some relatives. We lived on the east side. We went over to the west side to visit some relatives. And when we got over there, they had just finished building a go-kart. They welded up everything and built their own go-kart. And he got to ride the go-kart, and that gave him the bug. He wanted a go-kart. And so I had been a shop teacher, and I knew how to weld, but when I quit teaching, then I didn't have a welder available. and didn't have a high enough salary. Oh, by the way, here's where I finally remembered to turn on the aircraft orientation display so I could show how that's working. So anyway, I kept telling him we don't have a welder, I can't afford it. And so even though he kept bugging me. Well, then one Sunday afternoon, I was sitting in the living room, and he and his mom were sitting in the kitchen and looking at the Sunday paper. And if you remember, if you're old enough to remember, back several years ago, Sears had stores at a lot of different locations, and in the newspaper they always had a flyer. And if you remember, everything at Sears was on sale. I mean, they always put that there, and that would draw people in. So anyway, my son comes running into the living room with part of the newspaper in his hand, and he shows me. He says, "Dad, we can buy a welder. They've got them on sale at Sears." Well, I decided, well, go ahead and bite the bullet because I could use a welder anyway. In a previous video, I told about how I had gotten a Sunday school bus and parked it in our backyard, and I'll put a link to that and put a picture up of what it ended up looking like. So we had everything we needed. I had scrap metal from the seats that were in the bus. We had a place to work, and so we bought ourselves a welder. And so everything on that go-kart was constructed with the welder. I mean, the steering gear and all that stuff. And what I needed wheels. So I went down to the Goodwill store, and they happened to have a lawnmower for sale for $12 that had good wheels on it. And so I brought that home and realized that there wasn't a whole lot wrong with it. And so by the way, this here, I've made videos of this. This used to be the pumping station for that circular irrigation. But for some reason, they closed it down, and that yellow tank was where they injected the chemicals and stuff like that. But they don't do that anymore. At least that's not where they do it. There's another pumping station they've got further down, which we'll be flying over. So anyway, we made everything on there on that go-kart. And then I needed, like for instance, needed a shaft to a drive shaft in the back. And so a friend of mine happened to have a drive shaft that worked just fine. And then of course I didn't think about centrifugal clutches, so we made our own fan belt clutch and hooked that up so that he had to learn to use it without killing the engine, and that took quite a few tries. And then the steering gear was all welded together. We just built that ourselves. So we had the steering gear, we had the motor mount, and we pretty much just built everything. And fortunately, I had friends that gave us some things like the motor. I had a friend who had a small engine shop, and so he gave us a motor that he had laying around. So everything kind of just fell together, and so we got it put together and got it started, and everything ran. Oh, by the way, the lawnmower, it didn't run, but a friend of mine had a carburetor that we put on there, and so then he drove around on the lawnmower having fun with it while we were trying to finish up the go-kart. So anyway, we got it all put together, and the first time he took it out, we lived there was a driveway that went down past our house to some houses behind us, and they had the right of way to go down there. So first thing we did was got him going, and naturally he went as fast as he could. And when he got down to where the neighbors were, he realized he didn't have any brakes. So he ended up crashing his brand new homemade go-kart into their front porch. And of course, it didn't break their front porch, but it didn't do the go-kart any good. So that's when we decided maybe we should probably uh, hook up a brake system. So we designed our own brake system, and we got that to work by rubbing against the tires, and he had a pedal for the brakes and a pedal for the clutch, and I guess we had a pedal for the fuel. So anyway, he got that thing going, and once he got used to the clutch, he drove circles around that school bus that I had. He'd go around it and around it and around it and around it, and bounced around, and he just had a really good time with that go-kart. Now, you'll notice we have 4 horses. Well, we don't. My son and his family do. And they just picked up the one on the far left. They picked her up day before yesterday, and she's a thoroughbred. She's 17 years old, and she's the great-granddaughter, or a great-granddaughter, of Secretariat, the racehorse. So my daughter, or my daughter-in-law, is pretty happy about that. She's got herself a nice thoroughbred horse. So anyway, they're going to probably get rid of the white one because it's old and doesn't have much personality. They can ride it and it works fine, but they're probably going to get rid of it because there's not enough room for 4 horses as it is. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to show you, before I land, I'm going to show you what the harvesting dust does to our black VW. Actually, it does it to everything, but it really shows up on the black VW. As you can see it sitting down there. And it's kind of a headache because now if we wash it today, well, then they're going to be harvesting tonight again. And so we have to wait until they're finished harvesting if we don't want to have to wash the car several times, if you know what I'm talking about. So that's not much fun. And sometimes we wash it by hand, but lately we've been too old, too tired, and we take it to the car wash. So that's what it looks like the morning after they do the harvesting. And so that's where we live, and that's what you put up with because that's how it is. So once again, there's the aircraft orientation display, and as I'm coming in closer with the drone, coming in closer to land, as you can see, it's doing a pretty good job. Except it shows it shows the little arrow on the where the location of where I am always points about 90 degrees to the right of where it should be pointing. So anyway, here we come in to land. I want to thank you for watching my videos, and God bless.